This is the show for people trying to get it together while the world seems to be falling apart. Today, we are going to be talking about fear of judgment. Fear,
Mhm.
because fear of judgment can be very debilitating. It's ubiquitous, meaning it's something universal that everybody has touched into or felt at one time or another. And for many people, it plagues them and taints their experience from cradle to grave. And so we want to address that. Tough though. We can navigate it.
Yeah.
Thing.
Good morning. Yeah. I'm excited to chat about this one. This is actually going to be the first time that Brian and I are going to try doing some live coaching on this. Normally we have a conversation, we talk through our topics, and we have a grand old time, but we're also going to do a little bit of coaching today.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about the fear of judgment, what it is, orient everybody, and then Mo has bravely agreed to bring a
Mhm.
fear of her own to the table, and we're going to do a little mini coaching session and see how far we get.
Yeah.
We started off the definition of judgment. There were so many different definitions of judgment in the dictionary, but most of them have nothing to do with what we're talking about. They were just like, oh, to figure things out. You know what I mean? Or like a summary in court. Like, okay, whatever. That doesn't matter. But the
Mhm.
definition that does matter is the capacity to form an opinion by distinguishing and evaluating, because
Mhm.
that's what the human mind is so good at. The heart doesn't judge, actually. It's not judgmental like our core nature,
Mhm.
but our mind has to have judgment in it because evolutionarily, judging things, evaluating between things, and making those distinctions kept us alive. In
Yeah.
fact, not only did it keep us alive, but it kept us alive to judge and evaluate negative things more often and more quickly and more thoroughly than to evaluate positive things. So over time, not only have we instilled within ourselves this knowing about how judgment saves our lives, but we've
Mhm.
also instilled within our body this knowing that judging the negative and identifying it quickly and first saves our life.
Mhm.
And so that was super helpful, right? Back in the day of
Yeah.
being chased by tigers and, all of that. But in today's society, it's not as helpful to have, that's called a negativity bias. That's what psychologists call it. It's not as helpful to have this negativity bias where our mind is so focused on the negative events and so focused on judging them so as to protect us from their reoccurrence. So then we end up with this judgmental mentality, which backfires because that judgmental mentality, it's a reflection. If we're judging things all of the time, of course, we are going to assume then that we are also being judged all the time. So fear of judgment comes from the mind's ability to judge. And so we make this assumption that because we're judging all the time, we're being judged all the time. Even if our judgments aren't mean or unkind, we will assume that the ones coming towards us are because of the negativity
Mhm.
bias.
Yeah. So I want to talk about just a little bit of like the makeup or the experience of a fear of judgment. So when we talk about fear of judgment, what we're really talking about is we we have a desire to be perceived positively. And so anytime that we worry that another person could perceive us in a light or from an angle that isn't what we prefer, that is a fear of judgment. So if I'm worried that somebody is going to think that I'm irresponsible, if I'm worried that somebody's going to think that I'm unintelligent or like crazy, or worried that they are just not going to like me or think that I'm not, fun to be around, like all of these things, any concern that someone perceives you disfavorably is a fear of judgment. And when we experience this, I just want to talk about like what's kind of happening in our brains and usually why this exists. So I think there's kind of three pieces to it. That first piece is just that we have a desire to be perceived positively, which is, evolutionarily beneficial. Like our bodily makeup and instincts kind of recognize that if other people don't like us, that could be a threat to our survival because human beings are social creatures and we really dependent on our communities and our connections in order to survive. And so if you feel like you're going to be perceived disfavorably, it kind of feels like a threat to your survival, right? So that's the first piece is a desire to be accepted, a desire to be seen positively, favorably. And then the second piece is a usually subconscious worry that if someone else believes or thinks something negatively about me, and I'm going to have to say this twice so it makes sense. I will worry that what they think somehow means something true about me.
Mhm.
So if someone thinks that I'm not fun to be around, I worry that that means I'm not fun to be around. I worry that what they think is true, and that's what makes that fear powerful. But in some cases, some people might say, okay, like I'm worried that somebody thinks this about me, but I don't actually believe it's true. And in that case, what we're really worried about is we're worried that what that person thinks of us is going to have consequences for us. So,
Mhm.
for example, a lot of times, we fear judgment from people who are like authority figures or peers, right? So, if we're worried about, let's say, a boss thinking that we're not responsible or we're not mature, then we might worry that that could impact like my performance review negatively. It could like prevent me from like getting a raise, or in the case of an interview, that's a place where a lot of people fear judgment,
Mhm.
because it's literally a situation set up to judge you. Like they'll fear how the interviewer will perceive them because it affects their ability to get a job. But
Yeah.
also for just worrying enough for this job, making it mean something about you, making it mean that it's true. So there's these two kind of reasons why fear of judgment has a charge to it. It's either because I believe that if they think that about me, it might be true and that scares me because I want to be perceived favorably, or because other people's opinions of me will impact the way that I'm treated and potentially impact the opportunities that I have access to in my life.
Yes. So in a sense, I'm glad you're drawing this distinction, because the first one, right? Like worry that it might be true. That's like the real core fear of judgment itself for me. And this
Mhm.
other one, it's the fear is related to the judgments, but the fear itself sounds like fear is of consequences. The fear is of the fact that this authority is judging me. So I'm afraid because of their authority,
Mhm.
and not because of their judgment, right? So it's like a slightly different thing. Like I'm fearing that their judgment will impact me consequentially. I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of their judgment itself in that case. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and it could also be a peer. It doesn't have to be necessarily like an authority figure. Could like a consequence could be like I feel less like I'm a part of a group. I
Mhm.
feel less accepted because my peers think blank about me. So in that case, like they're not quite an authority figure, but they still are somebody that can impact your access to resources, opportunities, and otherwise like accepted love.
Totally. Yeah. So authority, maybe in the broader sense, like anyone where there's a power dynamic, even an equal relationship, there's always what's at stake. What you're describing is like a reputational thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if you judge me falsely, even if I don't believe it and it doesn't hurt my feelings, if other people believe your false judgments, that will have an
Mhm.
impact on me. Is that
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, that
Exactly.
makes sense. Right. Yeah. So that's like there's this layered thing with fear of judgment, because if you're fearing the judgments of others because you worry that they might be true, that's all within you. And that's there's really agency there, even though that's hard because you can work through that on your own. This other dimension of it is something that then needs to be worked out in your community, or a whole nother uh, way to skin this cat, right? So to speak.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we kind of talked about what's happening internally, what we're actually experiencing. But what are kind of the symptoms, or what how does a fear of judgment show up in our behavior?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of the things that popped up in my research this week were that the fear of judgment blinds you. In a study that I read, what
Mhm.
essentially they were evaluating people's like self evaluate, like how much they feared negative evaluation. That's what they call fear of judgment in psychological circles, fear of negative evaluation, super clinical boring language. But anyway, in this fear of negative evaluation, what it turned out to be was the higher your level of fear of being evaluated negatively, the more likely you were to overlook any positive qualities you have,
Uh-huh.
or strengths that you put out, like in a it was athletes in a game in this particular study. And it's like the athletes would overlook the achievements they made even within the game, and instead they would focus on their errors and their mistakes. Even
Yeah.
if they didn't egregiously lose the game, like they could still win the game, but the fear of judgment would blind them to their own positive qualities. That's literally what would happen, right? They would focus on and evaluate themselves more negatively because of their fear of judgment. There was a scale they used to measure the levels of fear of judgment. So they did this very like scientifically data oriented. Another one is that the fear of judgment hobbles you. Like, so not only does it blind you to your strengths, it actually makes you more likely to make errors and perform badly if you're judging that you're going to. So it's like the assumption that I suck and will perform badly works itself out in the reality of sucking and performing badly, right? So it's a
Yes.
self-fulfilling prophecy. So self-judgment has this
Mm.
loop quality, a Groundhog Day thing about it.
Yeah. Because then you like if the fear of judgment and that stress and like I guess activation in your nervous system like causes you to do the thing that you were afraid was going to happen,
Huh.
then you start to believe it more intensely about yourself and it gets harder to get out of that loop because now
Yeah.
you're worrying even harder that you suck and then more likely to suck and then believe harder that you suck and it just like keeps going. It's so terrible. And it's the same thing with like a fear of being like not enough. Like you'll try to prove yourself and you'll try to like get other people's approval like urgently and like fearfully and then you'll receive because of that like such strong desire and almost like desperation to prove yourself to other people, you'll get a more negative reaction from others. You'll start to like repel others and feel like, oh my gosh, like people really don't actually like me. I'm actually not enough. And then you'll keep doing it and it can go into an endless cycle. And like we have to be able to break that. Or just recognize that the cycle is happening because if we
That's
don't
the
recognize
first
it's
step.
happening, yeah, then you'll keep behaving out of the fear, which will never get you to a place where you feel differently about yourself.
Exactly. So recognizing that pattern is so key because, like you just eloquently described, it's literally a pattern that's a
Mm.
spiral, but it's a spiral ever downward when you keep giving into the fear, right? The way to turn that into
Yeah.
an upward spiral is to show up with courage. Remembering though that courage means you still feel all kinds of fear. Like courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means I
Yes.
notice you, I see you, and I'm going to commit to this other value driven action anyway. That's the thing. That's the way forward, right? So to give an example, I am nervous about this live coaching that we're about to do. I woke up feeling nervous
Mhm.
about, I've coached probably hundreds of people, maybe for thousands of hours, and yet
Mhm.
I feel nervous. And
Yeah.
I have this thought in my head, right, telling me, um, what if you don't help? What if it doesn't work? What if you're a fraud? And like these kinds of thoughts still come. And the reason I'm bringing this up is
Yeah.
was I feel them. They
Even
they
when you
they
have the skills,
even when you have the skills, they're still there.
even
I'm
when it's
still
not true.
flawed, and my mind is filling me with those thoughts. That's been filling me with those thoughts all morning, and I can witness that phenomenon. The trick is to notice the unpleasant thoughts, but not to be thoroughly identified with them as in their truth. I believe them. So instead of
Yeah.
believing them fully, I just notice them. They're there. They're inviting me to have a freak out. And I'm
Mm.
just declining the invitation to have a freak out. And instead, I'm going to show up and coach Mo. My palms
Yeah.
are still sweaty. My heart is still beating a little faster than it would normally be, right? So it's like, this is what we mean when we say the fear doesn't leave you. The courage doesn't replace the fear. The courage just puts an engine behind the fear so you can move forward with the fear anyway. And so that's what we're about
Mhm.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we often do in coaching is we'll notice that a thought is there and then create a little bit of separation from it. So you may have the thought like, "Oh, like I don't know how this coaching is going to go or I'm afraid that I'm not going to help." But then we can take a step back and say, "Okay, that's a thing that my brain is saying, but that doesn't mean that it's true." Like just because I'm fearing that this won't be helpful doesn't mean that that has any real bearing on reality. And but if you were to completely give up or give into that fear, then you're going to be less grounded and you'll be less able to help.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty of it too is like, it's not even necessarily having to compete with whether the thought's true, because sometimes some thoughts are true, right? Potentially, like,
Yeah.
he will die one day. That's
Yeah.
true. There's no getting around that. And yet, if I decide to live with full identification in that thought, and let it
Yeah.
control my behavior, then the thought is now ruling me. And it's,
Mhm.
but so it doesn't matter that it's true or not. It can be true. And I'm going to decline the mind's invitation to freak out about it being true and get on with my day, get on with my life, get on with my meeting, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We just said we practice. It's practice, everybody. These are always aspirational things. And even us coaches still screw it up daily. So
Yes. Right. So do you want to jump in with that then?
yeah, for sure.
Okay. Ready to coach.
Or
And something that I want to know is anyone who's watching, it actually is super beneficial to listen to another person being coached because you can always go in with the mind of like, how could this apply to me? So even if you have a different fear of judgment than the one that I have and the one that I'm going to share, um, you can still imagine being asked the same questions for your own like unique brand of fear of judgment and apply it to yourself as if you were the one being coached. So while it's not quite as like direct, there is still always something to be gained from experiencing another person being coached.
yeah, good point. I'm so glad that you said that. Okay, so then let's dive in. So, good morning, Mo. What is on your mind today around judgment?
Fear of judgment. So one of the fears of judgment that I have dealt with in my life that has been kind of a thread from when I was a kid, even through now, is I have had a fear of being perceived as unintelligent. And the way that that has shown up for me is I have always been kind of an overachiever. I always wanted to be like doing things right in school academically. And so I tried really hard at school. I tried really hard to like learn things quicker than my peers if I could, so that I wouldn't risk being seen as dumb.
Yeah, okay. And so that fear of being perceived as unintelligent, do you notice it showing up anywhere in your present day life?
Yeah.
Can you give me a situation
Mhm.
being too vulnerable?
Yeah. So one of the ways that this has shown up is I like to play board games, and that's like my hobby. And sometimes I'll find myself when I go to play board games with my friends, I will get a little bit anxious if I'm not understanding the rules, like when we're learning a new game. And I worry that um if I don't get the rules quick enough, that I'll be seen as like less intelligent than the other people in the room. And so it becomes, even though I really enjoy games, I have to fight this like anxiety because yeah, I have to like fight that fear and that anxiety and that worry that other people are perceiving me that way. Cause part of me recognizes like that's just a thought. Like my friends don't think that I'm dumb. There are plenty of other, evidence and examples as to why I'm not. But in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, if I don't get these directions, if I don't understand the strategy of the game soon enough, then I'll be perceived as less intelligent.
Yeah. So is there an example of a time, maybe in the last week or two, since I know you played board games quite a lot, where you were introduced to a new board game and you started to feel this, not quite getting the rules thing?
Yeah, we were playing, I was just playing this with my partner, and it's like a duel game, Seven Wonders Duel. And it's just a two-player, and there were a lot of moving pieces and like new symbols and things, and I just wasn't putting all the pieces together. And so I started to feel kind of frustrated because even though like there was no pressure and my partner definitely doesn't care how quickly I get it, I still was putting pressure on myself to get it and get it quickly. And that negatively impacted like my ability to enjoy the game because I was worried about not getting it.
Yeah. And when you were in that moment feeling the pressure, if you can go back, can you pinpoint what was that pressure saying to you? Meaning, what were the thoughts going through your head?
It was mostly just like an urgency, like I need to get this, I need to get this.
Yeah, okay. I need to get this, right? And if you I'm curious that I
Mhm.
need to get this. Do you when you hear that voice in your head, whose voice does it sound like?
Um,
if someone's coming to mind, but because we're in a public forum, it's like you don't want to name that someone.
Yeah, I can't name the person.
Okay, so someone close to me or someone of
Yeah.
importance,
Yeah, somebody close to me. Yeah.
somebody of importance who's not you. Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So knowing that that you're picturing this person now, because you can't not, right? If I say think of a white elephant,
Mhm.
I'm going to. So
Yeah.
what do you make of that? That voice is this other voice.
Um, well, one that like this pressure that I'm putting on myself didn't start with me.
Mm.
Um, that I'm trying to like live up to a certain like expectation. Um, and that it's not so much about wanting to be smart as it is like wanting to be accepted.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So wanting, do you notice as that comes up, that wanting to be accepted, does anything come to mind where you really felt acutely misunderstood or not accepted?
Mm, no, I don't know.
Yeah, no, 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 that's okay. So as we're talking this through and we're coming sort of to the idea that the pressure is related to a fear of not being accepted. Do I have that right? Rather than a fear of necessarily being judged, hearing that back, what's coming to your mind about that situation with the board games, if anything?
Um, well, if I were to like step back and not be actively in the fear, I could see that in that situation, I was not at risk of being not accepted. Like the only like I wasn't accepting myself in that moment because I expected myself to be quicker, smarter, different than I was, but the person I'm playing the game with actively in that moment is not judging me, is not going to reject me because I don't get the rules of the game. Like we're just playing a game. It's quite literally a very like low stakes and it's just a way that we're spending time together and the point isn't for me to be smart.
Yeah, okay. So as we're talking about this, I'm wondering what would be a really useful shift for you around this fear and pressure that comes up when you're playing board games and you'd rather just enjoy?
Yeah, I think part of it's like I wish that I knew in my whole body that like that's not what it's about. Like it's not about being intelligent, but the other part of it is I want to be able to let people think that about me. Like if somebody does think I'm unintelligent, I want to be able to let them have that without it affecting the way that I perceive myself. But it's kind of complicated because I feel like people don't perceive me that way. It's only me that's perceiving me in that way. So,
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you part of you saying you wish you knew it in your body, and another part is also saying, or maybe it's the same part, I don't know, but you're saying you want to let other people's opinions of you stand, even if the opinion is an error according to you.
yeah, I want to let them have that because I mean, if they think that there's a part of me that knows that somebody can think that I'm unintelligent and that doesn't make me unintelligent.
So how does not letting them have it show up in your life right now? Like what is it within you? Like what's happening where you're in this stance of wanting to change their opinion? What's going on for you?
Trying to like prove and assert myself, like almost like trying to explain my behavior or try like I don't know. Mm.
That prove and that prove yourself thing, is that like a something that's happening within you when you're feeling that erroneous perception, or do you find yourself in your behavior trying to explain?
Yeah, in my behavior, like trying to like explain away like the fact that I'm not getting something. Like, oh, well, I didn't get it because this. Or oh, like trying to justify
Ah, okay.
when nobody's attacking me.
So do you have an example of a time when you recently were explaining yourself and realized maybe in it or later that there was no good reason to be explaining yourself?
Um, I've had like I'm not going to give like super specifics, but
Sure.
I've had conversations with like my partner or my parents or other people that are close to me where I'm just trying to like explain where I was coming from when really whatever had happened, whatever moment that I made a mistake or didn't get something or didn't understand, like it wasn't even something consequential or important enough to need an explanation,
Mm.
but because I was worried about being perceived a certain way, then I'm explaining myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
hoping that the other person will accept like my explanation. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you're worried and before you start explaining, that's fine. That's like the worry feeling. But when
Yeah.
you're in the middle of explaining yourself,
Yeah.
what do you notice is going on in your body? Like while you're in it, not before, not the worry, but during.
Yeah, I mean, I'm believing that people are thinking negatively about me, but I'm also believing something negative about myself because if I didn't if I wasn't actively thinking like, "Oh, I look unintelligent," or "Oh, I am unintelligent," then I wouldn't be trying to prove otherwise. If I had complete faith in my own intelligence, then there wouldn't be anything to explain.
Yeah. So what do you notice is happening in your body when you're in the middle of doing that explaining? Like what's going on with your breathing, with your heart rate, with your skin? Anything you notice?
It's just ramping up. Like I'm just getting activated. It's totally the feeling of fear coming to the surface. It's just your well, we've talked about this. Your brain, your prefrontal cortex kind of shuts down as the amygdala is getting activated. So the fear is turning on, logic's turning off, and then it's just uncomfortable.
Have you had experiences where you felt this pressure or anxiety about being misunderstood or seen wrong, where you've found a way to move through it?
It's usually like reassuring myself. Um, yeah, it's mostly like if I can catch that the fear is happening, then I have to like ground and kind of sort through like fact versus fiction, like what like is it true that like someone is perceiving me in this way and do I actually need to defend myself?
Yeah. Okay. So you found that sort of slowing down and grounding works at
Mm.
least a little bit. And even asking questions of yourself helps you a little bit. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
And then you were talking about earlier that like when somebody is like deep in a fear of judgment that they're less likely to give themselves credit for their
Mhm.
strengths or to recognize their strengths. So sometimes it's also like actively reassessing what are my strengths or what is the evidence that this thing is not true. So if I'm worried that I'm going to be perceived as unintelligent, I can look to all the points in my life where I did feel intelligent or where um I was able to figure things out. Um and that kind of juxtaposes this moment of fear that I'm experiencing with what's actually true about me.
Yes, the multiple realities, right? Because the reality that you're afraid is true, but the reality that you're competent and intelligent is also true, right? And
Mhm.
one displace the other, but instead we want to hold them together. So let me ask you, sorry, I jumped off into teaching mode because we're live. Let me ask you a question. So as we're talking from where we were 15 minutes ago to where we are now, is anything coming up for you as a possible step you could take going forward next time you're confronted with this pressure to shift it a little bit?
I think it's breathe, notice the fear, remind myself of my strengths,
Yeah, okay.
and also remember that the judgment that I'm feeling is probably more me judging myself than the other person judging me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I will add to that that almost everyone on the planet is so deeply self-absorbed that they are really not judging you. Like not you, but you,
Oh,
the wider world, anybody, right? Like we're so busy judging ourselves. We don't even have time to judge other people. So everyone listening, you can take that to the bank too. But oh, back to you for 1 second. This is my last question for you. So from where we
Mhm.
were at 15 minutes ago to where we are now, what shifts are you noticing for yourself, if any, good, bad, or ugly? And there's no wrong answer to this.
Yeah. No, it feels a little lighter, and I feel like just by talking through it, I can feel like the belief of just like I am intelligent is a little stronger, which is exactly what you want because like the more you can affirm this positive thing about you, the less intense the fear is going to be because you're going to have this like trust that it's okay, that this is just a thought that I'm having, that this is just a belief that I've learned based on pressure that came before me.
Good voice. Yeah.
Some other voice, and that just because I'm having the thought that I'm worried that someone else might think that I'm unintelligent doesn't mean that I actually am.
And it doesn't even mean they think that. Like,
They probably
you're
that's
not
true.
unintelligent. Like, there's so many layers of it,
That's
like
true.
that we could have incorrect when we're making those assumptions, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
which we all do. That's like Mo is a brave example of something we all do, right? Everybody. So Mo, thank you so much
Mhm.
for being open and transparent like that with us this morning. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, this is fun.
Um,
I
Go ahead.
do want to share a metaphor that I use for like helping to remind myself that what other people think about you, even if they do think something negative about you, that it's not personal and that it's not reflective of the truth. So I'm just going to share this is something that I like to share in prisons when we do communication training. So imagine there is a painting on a wall and there are two people like standing in the gallery gazing at this painting, and one person looks at the painting and is like, this is tasteless. This is like the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I don't know what the artist was thinking. They have no talent. Like absolute garbage. And then the other person that's standing next to this person is like, this is the most wonderful piece of artwork I think I've ever laid my eyes upon. It's it's so precise, it's gorgeous, the colors are vibrant, etc. You have two people who are looking at the same exact painting and who have completely different opinions as to whether this painting is good or bad. And I'm going to ask you a question. So, Brian, you'll be the guinea pig for this.
Cool.
If these two people are gazing on the same painting and they have completely different opinions, who is responsible for their opinions about the painting?
The painting is responsible. Kidding. Kidding. Did I get it right? Did I get it right?
No.
No.
Who's responsible?
The opinion former.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we're fearing being judged, sometimes we're worried that who we are and the way we behave, is responsible for other people's opinions of us. But in reality, anyone's opinion, anyone's judgments are going to be based on their own lived experience, probably also based on their own judgments of themselves, their own expectations for what it means to be an acceptable or admirable human being, which everyone has different opinions about. So the point is, you and who you are and the way that you live your life is not responsible for or obligated to change the way that anyone else thinks about you.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I like the judgments are based on the opinion former. It's so important because like it's so our perceptions are we think there's like these universal truths like, oh, we're all going to judge someone the same who murders somebody, right? But actually it's not true. Like a serial killer is going to look at that other serial killer and be like, good on you. How have you not gotten caught in so long? Right. So it's like they judge each other the same way that we're going to judge them, which is like, even though we may not resonate with that, we don't want to be serial killers. Like it's the point is proven though, that it's
Yeah,
our internal filter that creates the judgment where it comes from.
exactly.
So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I'll end with a quote then from the Buddha. A day spent judging another is a painful day. A day
Mhm.
spent judging yourself is a painful day. So if you can, let all that go. And Mo, again, thank you so much for your bravery and your openness today. And everybody else, thank you for being here, for listening, for tuning in. We appreciate you all.